What are we supposed to talk about tonight?
Happiness.
Who?
What is happiness?
Oh, God.
And where to find it?
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not even going to sing a prayer. I'm just going to start, okay? So we just think we're going to listen to these ideas to see if there's something useful. That's the whole point. I always say, if this was cooking class, if I just raved on and talked about how nice cakes were, but never gave you one recipe, you'd be very disappointed, right? You've got to have recipes, you've got to have advice. And the point is, I can't see you there, darling. Move over a bit. You move it. Just move somewhere else. Yeah, I like to see you. It's nice. Yeah, that's it. Better, much better. There you go. Perfect. All right, darling. So to try and hear these words, it's coming from the Buddha, you know, this Indian fellow from 2,500 years ago, and all the people since that time who've been practicing these things, to hear it as advice to take into your life. That's the bottom line. And you might not like any of it, and that's okay. You don't have to take it. Buddha's not the boss. We are the boss. It's really important. So thinking like that. Advice for what? To help you become, the bare minimum, the Buddhist advice is to help us become less fearful, less neurotic, less angry, less jealous, more kind and more wise. Bottom line, that's it, honestly. It all comes down to that. Very minimum. So with this in mind, we listen. Okay? And I'm going to be listening too, even though I'm talking, I promise. So the answer to what is happiness is unbelievably simple for the Buddha. And it almost seems like deceptively simple. It almost seems like embarrassingly simple when you say the words. But why we make it so complicated? And I think the major reason is because when we think happiness, if we think of suffering, what we think of is the outside event. So we try to, what's happiness? So we try to think of the thing that makes us happy. We think of the beach, we think of the person, we think of the money, we think of the whatever it is out there. So if we make it complicated, and it's literally, isn't it, as if we are really looking for something. We're looking for happiness. That's how we talk. And we're trying to avoid suffering. But the Buddhist answer is almost, like I said, is almost embarrassingly simple. And it almost seems like a cliche. But it's profoundly and utterly true. And the more we think it, the more logical we can hear it. It's just that it's the hardest job we'll ever do because we are addicted to the opposite one. We're addicted to believing it's out there, you know. We're totally addicted to that. So for Buddha, for us, what happiness is when our attachment, and we discussed that a bit, and we've got to go into this more, because we don't understand this word attachment in Buddhism, we don't understand Buddhism at all. So for us, happiness is what we get when we get what attachment wants. In other words, put it more simple, happiness is when we get what we want. And I'm not trying to make it sound mean. It's just logical. If you want chocolate cake and don't want carrot cake, then obviously you say you're happy when you get the carrot cake, and you're not happy if you get the carrot. I mean, the other way around, isn't it? You're happy when the thing that you want happens. The nice weather, the pleasant sounds, the kind husband, the good job. It's sort of completely obvious for us, and we never ever for 1 millisecond question that logic. So the Buddha's idea is he's not totally disagreeing that when your husband is kind to you and when the chocolate cake is delicious, he's not disagreeing that it does in fact trigger happiness. But the crucial point, the way the word is there, it merely is the trigger. It's the catalyst. It's not the main cause. And they sound like splitting hairs, but this is the exact point. So even understanding this intellectually first is kind of powerful, you know. And don't, you know, not just hearing it as some kind of wishy-washy hippie idea, wishy-washy spiritual things. Hearing it as very logical and practical. So what we think happiness is when we get what we want. And the way to describe what we want is in the neurotic way is what Buddha calls attachment. There's this neediness, this kind of emotional hunger, this neediness, this kind of a bit neurotic craving, this desperate, rather frantic craving to get something. And the stronger that craving is, which in our culture we just think is totally normal, that's what the Buddha would call this neurotic attitude of called attachment, which of course we think is totally normal, so normal that you'd be abnormal if you didn't have it, you know. So for us, happiness is what you get when attachment gets what it wants. And naturally we spend all our day, isn't it, trying to work out what attachment wants and manipulating to get it, and obviously to avoid getting the opposite, because that's what's called suffering, isn't it? So that we all know the more you strongly want the chocolate cake, the neurotic I want chocolate cake, the more you expect chocolate cake, the more you manipulate to get the chocolate cake when you get to the restaurant, the more you anticipate it, the more you imagine it, the more you expect it, and then the more disappointed and upset you are when carrot cake turns up. It's kind of obvious. This is so natural to us in this culture, in our world, in fact, that we don't even question it. We just think it's normal. The more you expect chocolate cake, the more upset you are when it doesn't come. This is completely logical. We know this. We totally take it for granted. And the point is we don't question it. We just think it's natural. We think it's natural to get upset if you don't get what you want. We think it's natural to get angry, upset, irritated, annoyed, frustrated. We just think it's natural. We never question. And that's the essence of what Buddha's saying. So he says, happiness is what you get when you give up attachment. It's as simple as that. Or even you could say, don't hold your breath. According to the way they describe attachment in Buddhist psychology, it's a long way to go before you're free of it. It's something that's so deeply ingrained inside us. And because we think it's so natural, we never question it. So these words seem so abstract to us sometimes. It sounds like religion, you know. It's not like that. And this is why if you like the Buddhist view, then we really need to understand the particular model of the mind. It's very distinct, very precise, the Buddhist psychological model. And Buddha makes this key, like we were talking 2 days ago, he makes this key distinction, between these neurotic, kind of needy, neurotic, I-based, fear-based states of mind, when again, that we call natural, and the valid states of mind, like kindness and wisdom and intelligence, these ordinary words. We kind of know these words so well, but the unique approach in the Buddhist psychology, which is like I've been saying, a couple of thousand years old, makes this absolute distinction between these different states of mind. And that's not the way we think in our culture. Psychologically speaking, there's no model of the mind, there's no view of the mind, either in neuroscience or in psychology, that makes this same crucial distinction between the neurotic, fear-based, panic-stricken, I-based, worried, neurotic states of mind, which we consider them normal, and we give them equal status, along with love, wisdom, compassion, and kindness. We just use these words in a very casual way. But these are the substance of the Buddhist model of the mind. And I'm saying, it's so distinct that there's this fundamental difference between them. When we talk about it, we all recognize. But it's not how we talk in our modern psychology. In other words, and like I've been saying on whatever day it was, Tuesday, when I was here, wasn't it? Tuesday. And saying the Buddhist view in the long term, the whole method in Buddhist psychology, the whole methodology that ends up, that leads to the result. And the result, as I said to you, is expressed by this simple word, called the Tibetan word for the word Buddha. Buddha is Sanskrit. And the meaning in Tibetan is very curious, very interesting, it's very telling. Sangye. And the etymology of this word is very precise. The meaning that's implied by sang is the utter eradication from the mind of all these neuroses. That's very abstract for us, that's very bizarre. If you try and imagine just ordinary life, try and imagine never having neediness, attachment, anger, jealousy, depression, resentment, anxiety, worry, the mind going up and down. Try and imagine that, and it just sounds like you wouldn't be a human being. We so think these are normal parts of a human being, don't we? It's just completely normal, and all our psychological models say that. In fact, if you go to your therapist and ask for methods to please get rid of all anger, all fears, all jealousy, they'll think you're mentally ill. I'm quite serious. If one is a therapist, you think I'm nuts asking you for those methods, because we assume these are normal states of mind. Yeah, good, I can now see you. But the guy behind you, I can't. So you move your chairs, just move around, that's it. So really, these words are so simple, you can almost gloss over them. You think, oh yeah, so cute, so nice. But this is the essence of Buddhist psychology, and the level to which we can develop in this way is so incredibly outrageous. It's just not possible in our ordinary culture, the way we think about it. We give equal status to all these states of mind. You'd be considered abnormal if you even thought that you should never have anger, never have jealousy. And don't hear it as should, like you're a naughty person, you're a sinner. No. Just observing practically the different states of mind we've all got. And to recognize all this, we don't need all these fancy words we use in modern psychology. like PSDC and ADID and God knows what, all these things. I know I'm being sarcastic, but hear my point. We give these special terms to them. We know these words, they're so intimate, they're so grounded, they're so inside us. Attachment, we mightn't use that word too often, but the neediness, the emotional hunger for something, which is the assumption in us that I'm just not enough. That's the point. Why would you be always hungry for something? Because you feel you're missing something. It's kind of logical. And that's just something we totally take for granted. The energy of attachment, the Buddha says we're born with it, and it's this aching feeling that somehow I'm not enough, somehow I'm not good enough, somehow I don't have enough, and no matter what I get, it's not enough. No matter how much food I get, it's not enough. No matter how much I change the shape of my body, it's not enough. No matter how much I fix my face, it's not enough. No matter how much my boyfriend tells me he loves me, it's not enough. It's almost like the default view we all tend to have, and we think it's normal. We run to the negative view every time. It's kind of bizarre, actually. This is the energy of attachment. So naturally, on the basis of feeling you haven't got enough, not happy in other words, we have to hunger after something. So the first level of it is obviously the objects of the senses, the things of the eyes, the things to look at, the things to hear, the things to taste and touch and smell. It's kind of obvious, the objects of our senses, which, let's face it, is the entire world. So then we search in the world, since we're tiny, and we define the objects of the different senses that we know are the ones that when we get them, it triggers happy feelings. So it's true, it does. When you taste the cake, it definitely triggers a happy feeling. But so the assumption is, then logically, the cake is the cause of happiness. That means if I don't get the cake, I can't be happy. The boy is the cause of happiness. So if I don't get the boy, or the boy leaves me for a younger version, then clearly I don't have happiness. This is so logical. It's so natural. It almost seems ridiculous to argue with it. But that's the point the Buddha's taking. That actually, it's possible, the Buddha's view is, it's possible to change the way we see things. It's possible to change our mind. It's possible to lessen the neediness, lessen the aversion, lessen the fears, etc., etc. It's possible. Eventually, long term, don't hold your breath, get rid of them. That's long term. But I think even the kind of thing that's a revelation for us, I know for me when I first heard the Buddha's teachings, this idea that I've got the potential, maybe I can't see it right now, but the potential to be less neurotic, less angry, less fearful, less emotional. I don't mean emotional in a kind of a negative sense. I don't mean not to be emotional. Emotion is perfect. To have a big heart, to cry, to have love and compassion and kindness, that's emotion. But the neurotic ones. And so it's the understanding of these that's unique to the Buddhist approach, I would say, The words, like I was saying, the words are easy, but to begin to do this job is not the easiest job we'll ever do. It's easy if we haven't got problems. But often, there's a kind of level of practice in Buddhist psychology that's more advanced, actually. They call it transforming problems into happiness. That means learning to greet the problems with a happy mind. That almost seems like schizophrenic to us. This sounds like weird. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's sort of obvious. Because the only reason, you see, what a problem by definition, using the Buddhist model, a problem by definition is when attachment doesn't get what it wants. So this is very shocking to hear. So we all know, for example, there are certain people we don't like. This is normal human behavior. Join the universe here, okay? We all know that. There are always people we don't like, people who don't like us, people who freak us out, people as soon as we meet them, as soon as we hear their name, we can't stand the sight of them. It's normal human behavior. Look at the world, So of course we never question that. But what sounds so shocking to hear, the reason that I can't stand a person, which is called aversion. There's these two fundamental states of mind in Buddhist psychology, and they sound like, again, attachment's one. That's the driving force. That's like this motor that propels us, and it's really subtle. It's under everything. It's under all our good qualities as well. It's there driving us. This neurotic neediness to get what I want every millisecond, like this infant inside us. And it sounds kind of cruel talking like this. That's the cause of the problems. So the second it doesn't get what it wants, so the second my neediness and my attachment meet an object I don't want, carrot cake, meet a person I don't like, meet a person who's mean to me, meet the person in the shop who's unkind to me, the guy on the road who jumps in front of me, not to mention the husband who's unkind, the mother, the father, the neighbours. Look at us, the world. Think of it really simply. In the world, because we have attachment, certain people are the objects of our attachment, and they're the ones we love. They're the ones who do what our attachment wants. They're our friends. They're our poodle. They're our beloved husband who's kind to us. Then you have people you call enemies, and we mightn't use that word, but it's a good name for the objects of our aversion, the people we don't like, the people we consider are mean to us, unkind to us, who are arrogant, who treat us disrespectfully. This is the universe. It's so normal, but we never question it. We assume, oh, that person's lovely, they're gorgeous, they're kind to me, so I'm going to love them. That person is mean, so I can't stand them. We don't question this. We don't ever question these assumptions. And this is the level that you could say, I mean, this is not as if it is unique to the Buddha. Good Christians talk like this. You know, a good person with a set of ethics would talk like this. So it seems to me that the Buddhist view really runs with this view, that we have the capability to work on these states of mind. If we can change the person, if we can make them respect us, if we can make them love us, if we can make them be kind to us, hey, go for it. Buddha says, if you can change something, please change it. But the point is, we know, much of the time we can't. So that's why we go crazy. Isn't it? It's so obvious. It's just so blazingly obvious. So the very first level of practice, you know, the logic of the sort of these levels of practice actually, very interesting. The very basic level of practice. You know, if I've got a really uncontrolled, crazy mind, full of attachment, get upset when I don't get what I want, fight with people, shout and yell, and that was me when I was younger. I mean, I'm still volatile. You can tell, you know, do you understand? It's my nature. But I worked on it, so I can say that with confidence. So at the first level, if you're really berserk and you can't handle something, the most intelligent thing to do is remove yourself from the object. If you're alcoholic, think about it. If you've got strong craving for alcohol, nobody would ask you, and hear the words carefully, no one would expect you to give up attachment to alcohol while continuing to drink alcohol. I mean, it's impossible. It's ridiculous. You have to give up the alcohol. Well, if you can't handle certain people, you should keep out of their way. But we don't do that. We run back like a moth to a flame and then wonder why we fight every day. But if you have any self-respect, the first level of practice is because your mind's berserk, you get uncontrolled, you get angry, then you should remove yourself from the person. Don't be near them. That's just protecting yourself. It's common sense. If you get too hot near the fire, you move yourself from it. But when it comes to emotions and people, we've got no common sense whatsoever. This is why, I mean, I don't joke, but it's true, but it's like a joke. When I say that 40% of all female people on this planet who get murdered, you know who murders them. The person in the same bed. So that if we had any common sense, you'd say, excuse me, baby, I'm out of here. But we don't. We wait till we get killed, and then it's too late, isn't it? I mean, this is the problem. We've got no sense of respect, no sense of our own mind, no sense of awareness of what the hell is happening in here. And when we are aware of the anger inside us, and this is the part of the problem, we truly believe the person is the problem. We never for 1 millisecond think that our attachment is the problem and our anger is the problem. And this is such a fine point. It's an outrageous point. It's a shocking point, you know. But so hard to understand, so hard to practice. So if we had any common sense, if we're out of control, you'd remove yourself from that person. If you can't handle your husband cheating on you, bye-bye, baby, I'm out of here. It's intelligent, but we don't have enough self-respect. We run back like a moth to a flame, believing in our attachment, believing in the jealousy, believing in the anger, and blaming somebody. That's the victim. That's the victim. And the default mode of ego is victim. I promise. It sounds so heavy. But as we progress, as we begin to know our mind, let's say you use Buddhist techniques and you start to hear about attachment as the cause of suffering, anger is the cause of suffering, jealousy is the cause of suffering, and you start to try to take it seriously, then then at a more advanced level, this is the one where you're now realizing the person you've got in your life who's making you crazy, who doesn't respect you, who is unkind to you. This is a really brave level of practice where you will learn to, instead of blaming them, which is so spontaneous, but you realize, yes, due to some past karma, and we'll talk about karma more the weekend for sure, due to history from the past. You've got some old junky history from the past. You meet each other again and you can't stand the sight of each other. It triggers so much stuff inside us. We know we have relationships like that. But the easiest thing in the world is to dump it all on that person. And that's what's unbelievably difficult not to do. So yes, they might be a problem. They might well be a problem. Everything we're seeing might be true. They might be arrogant. They might be rude. They might be negative. It's true. It's possible. People, all kinds of people on this planet. But that's, if you're brave enough, that's like if you're playing tennis and you're only in grade 2 and you're going to get a chance to play with a grade 6 guy. So you can't stand there like a victim and complain because they're playing good tennis. No, I can't play you. You're better than me. It's a challenge, isn't it? It's going to be a challenge. They're forcing you to play good tennis. Well, the same here. If you've got a person in your life you don't like and who's harmful to you, they're forcing you to work on your mind. And that's the brave attitude. That's the brave level of practice, I tell you. This is intense, but it needs incredible logic every day, working with yourself and not buying into all the stories of attachment and the stories of anger, because those stories completely dump onto the outside the view in our mind. And we can't tell the difference between our mind, our view, and the person. This is what Buddha means by samsara, this kind of ancient Indian concept. It means caught up in these neuroses and join the universe. This is the normal human behavior of all beings, you know. And Buddhism happens to run with an understanding of this approach. So it's really intense. It's really intense level of practice if we can do it. And all the Buddha's saying is that's the source of your sanity. That's the source of your sanity, when you can learn to greet the problem. And it's like, the problem is you're only in grade 2 and you've got grade 6 guy coming to play tennis with you. They'll destroy you. But it's a challenge if you're brave enough, instead of having a tantrum. It's an opportunity to grow and almost as if you don't start to practice until we can do this. It's almost as if you don't start to practice until we can start dealing with the person we don't like in our mind. Now, one of the first levels of practice, and this sounds so embarrassing, it's so simple, it's almost like a joke. One of the first levels of practice is shut your mouth. And I don't mean to the person. Shut your mouth telling your husband, your sister, and everybody else about them. The first thing we do is we go home and can't talk about that horrible person at work. We complain and moan. We spend all day going on about them. Well, no wonder you have a problem when you go back to work next day, because you've just badmouthed them the whole night. So you just build up the fire. It's sort of obvious, isn't it? And it seems almost hysterical to think of not saying one bad word about them. Because the first thing we do is we can't wait to tell somebody the problem. That's what we all do. This is one of our main problems, I promise you. Do you understand my point? I mean, look at families. Why there are breaks in families, divorces, schisms in entire families, because everybody talks behind backs. Because we have this compulsion to vomit out our feelings to someone else because we can't handle our feelings ourselves. That's why we need decent therapists. If you don't vomit on your mother and your sister and your brother, go find a therapist, please. And vomit on them and then control your mouth when you're around your family. I mean, this sounds so cute, but it is the most profound level of practice, I can't tell you. I've got a family, right? 7 siblings, and they're all like me. Volatile. My mother had 7 daughters and then a son at the end. Everybody feels sorry for my brother, you know. We got one. 6 sisters like me. 1 died, so there's 6 girls and then a boy. Tony's the last one. So my mother also had 8 babies in 9 years, so we're very close in age, really intense. So we're all old now, right? All between 65. We're between 65 and 75, and I'm at the 75. I'm at 74 actually. So we're all in that period, very close together. So when we were children, they had so many babies so quickly they didn't catch up getting enough money. You know, so she sent us to the most expensive Catholic convent. I still joke and say she probably owes the bill 70 years later, you know. But she meant well. She was a musician. My father was an old hippie who played snooker and drank beer and didn't do much else. My poor mum had to take care of the whole family. So it was a really berserk family, but very close bond between us. So what I'm getting at is this. As children, we naturally fought like cats and dogs. 7 children all living together with not enough beds. So you're spending all this time together, 7 volatile people. Of course you fight, you go crazy, you know. So then as we got older, we did our own life, we'd come back for Christmas and we'd fight. Naturally, you do. But we'd make up easily. We never had big schisms in the family, do you understand? But we'd always argue and fight about different politics and different views, all very volatile. So it was always painful, naturally. So over the years, as we've gotten older, and this is my point now, I find it such a revelation. It's incredible. All my sisters, they don't like Buddhism. They're all Catholic. They've all given it up. They all can't stand church, religion and everything. They all put up with me. Because we don't talk about it anymore. So what I'm saying is, in this family, very volatile, we have this last 10 more years, I'd say, We've got this unspoken agreement that we never say bad things to each other behind our backs. And we used to do that all the time. So naturally, people believe the story. Janet says what Polly said, and Polly says what Judy says, and Judy told me what Rabina says. And there's always this stuff behind. It's what families do, isn't it? It's natural. But we stop doing that. And if we say anything, we praise each other. And second, when we're together, we never talk about things we disagree with. So we have such a good time. And the harmony in the family over the years, I can't describe it. It sounds like silly, but it's genuine good feeling, a genuine feeling of real kindness to each other and genuine rejoicing in each other's good qualities because we've shut our mouths. That's it. We didn't punch and kick. It's just the mouth. And most of us don't go around raping and killing too many people, I'm quite sure. It's the mouth. This sounds so cute somehow, but it's profound. If we can have enough self-respect, and you've got to have that, because if you're a victim, you're just going to vomit everything out. But when you develop some self-awareness, you control your speech, because that is what does the problem. Most people don't shout, many people do use their body to be violent, but the speech is what starts it. So if we can control our speech and vow every day, to not badmouth anybody else, and I'm including politicians, your next door neighbour, your people at work, and don't think it's like being Pollyanna. Because the point is this, and so shocking, who do you think is the beneficiary of this practice? Me. If you spend all day shouting, being mean, rude, shouting at the traffic, even if you're home all day on your own, but you're bad-mouthing all the time, who do you think is exhausted by the end of the day? You. Who do you think you've harmed all day? You. But this is what's so bizarre about our culture. We really don't think that our speech makes any difference. We really think, I'm allowed to say what I like. We even think I'm allowed to think what I like. We are allowed to, but what's the benefit of abuse and negative and angry and jealous and resentful speech or thought? You are the one who makes yourself crazy. And this is the very first level of the meaning of karma in Buddhism. It's so obvious. It's not a religious teaching. It's logic. What we think and what we say and do for the Buddha, every millisecond of what we think and do and say is the actual process of producing this person. So if I sit there and angry every day and resentful and hurt and jealous and unfair and not fair and he this and she that and the weather this and the husband that, what kind of person do you think I'm producing? A completely neurotic, miserable person. It's so obvious, but we don't see it. We're so schizophrenic. It's so bizarre. We're so disconnected from ourselves because we're so addicted to believing the outside world is the problem. That's the point. So when we can begin to get some self-respect, realize that every thought I have, not to mention every word I say and every action I do, produces me. Then who in their right mind, for their own sake, it's not moralistic, it's not religious, it's practical psychology. But we've got to realize that. We've got to realize that. So the beneficiary is yourself, but also I can see in our family, the beneficiary is every single one of us and the harmony and the respect we have for each other now. And we have fun together and love each other, but we just begin to control our speech. It's incredible. That's it. It's quite profound actually. So when we've got problems, of course we need someone to talk to. If you've got a good therapist, please use them. Got a best friend you can rely upon to spill your heart to. That's fantastic. But control who we talk to, because the other thing is this: we're all needing to be liked. So if everybody vomits their own misery all over us, we get exhausted. We want to push them away, but also we use it against them. Everybody uses what we tell them against us because we're all needy, So we've got to be so respectful to ourselves and therefore to other people. It's called good behaviour. It's doing what your grandmother said. Behave nicely, please. But in the Buddhism, there's real logic to it. It's not just because you want to be a good girl and get praised. It's because you're the beneficiary. This is the fundamental idea in practice in Buddhism, that whatever I think and do and say, first level is what produces me. So out of self-respect, not out of guilt, out of self-respect and kindness to myself, I would want to watch my mind. I would want to watch my speech. But find ways to get, support. We all need support. So this level of when we have problems with people, and it's completely natural, in your Buddhist center, in your local, in your family, in your work. It's always the close people we see every day. The strangers, we can manage them. We don't see them again. There's always people we work with, or in our Buddhist centre we deal with, or in our work or our family. That's where the problems are. So this is what practice is. We're really brave enough. So find a person to talk to. Find a person to help us sort it out. Then there can be harmony. Then you can work together. Because I see it in Buddhist centres all over the world. We're all human beings, but as soon as you get caught up, love all these theories, but as soon as you meet one person you can't handle, that's the end of us. We just fall into the trap of believing our own philosophical position, our own story about the person. It's not easy. It's not easy not to, but this is the essence of Buddhist practice. That realizing that my view here and what's out there, there's this big disconnect. And that's the point the Buddha's making psychologically. All the neurotic states of mind, attachment, aversion, and these are the fundamentals, attachment and anger. Attachment, anger, jealousy, and pride, or arrogance, or low self-esteem. If we can understand these states of mind within us, we can understand the world, I'm telling you. And we can work with these states of mind, really know them well, and understand. And the point about these states of mind is this. They make me miserable, right there. They are what make me miserable, not the person, not the carrot cake. The carrot cake is not the problem. Do you understand my point? It's my view of the carrot cake. It is not the chocolate cake that makes me happy. It's my view of the carrot cake, the chocolate cake. It's not the person I'm angry with who is the problem. They might be a creep. That's not argued. They might be a monster. That's not the discussion here. It's my anger of them, my view of them. Not my attachment. It's not the person who's so good to me that's the cause of my happiness. It's my neediness and my attachment that is expecting them to be good to me, and then they fulfill my needs. So this is really tricky stuff, And that's why the Buddha's view to distinguish between these neurotic states of mind and the valid ones like love and intelligence and compassion and kindness. These are the valid ones, but they mix like a big soup together. And that's why this job sounds easy, but it's the hardest job we'll ever do, to sort out like the facts and fiction in our own head, That's what's intense. And that's why we've got to have some level of focus, concentration, so-called mindfulness, to begin to do this job well. It's like a minefield, But this is the essence of daily practice. This is the essence of being a Buddhist. This is the heart of it. It's not believing in something. Karma is a whole view in Buddhism. We'll talk about it the weekend. There's no question. And it can be applied enormously in our life in terms of explaining things. But the day-to-day, in-your-face practice is what we're talking here. Recognizing what's in my mind, hearing the story that it's telling me, and how it's projecting that onto the person, onto the carrot cake, and then realizing there's a disconnect between what I see in here and what's out there. That's the key. That's the skill in Buddhist psychology. And you don't have to believe this. It's practical. And we kind of know this already. You might call it Buddhism. But it's intense hard work. Because the impulse of ego is to believe my story. We know this. We know this. It's so hard, so difficult. It demands enormous discipline. And that's why at least controlling the mouth, because the mouth is just a servant, isn't it, of what's in my mind. It comes and vomits out the mouth, isn't it? We have to give it to somebody because we can't handle it. Are we communicating here?
Yes.
Do we recognize? Mm-hmm. And not to be moralistic about it, not to be negative or fundamentalist or like I'm a sin, it's a sin, I'm a bad person. That's what we run to. We run to guilt and bad and shame. This is not what's being said. It's like self-preservation. It's like self-respect. Then on the basis of this is the wisdom wing. Then we can be of benefit to others. We can have wisdom, we can see where people are coming from, we will keep away from the crazies, we won't have all naive expectations of them, we'll understand people's problems well, we'll be wise and skillful with people. But we've got to first start with ourselves. The words are easy, but it's the hardest job we'll ever do. Any questions about all that? So happiness, you could put it even more simply. Happiness is your mind when you can, no matter what's happening out there, in the traffic, among crazy people, having Mr. Trump as your president, assuming you don't like him, you might like him, that's perfectly fine. Whatever it might be out there, happiness is the ability to keep your mind clear and steady and not follow attachment and anger and anxiety and jealousy and neurosis and keep your mind content. That's what happiness is. It doesn't mean it's boring. You can be very blissful as well. In other words, we're not like a victim that's pulled from pillar to post by every damned event that happens, which is how we are now. We're like victims right now. We have no control over our mind because whatever happens out there drags us from here to there. So happiness is the ability to be in charge of your own mind and be able to retain clarity and wisdom and kindness and less attached, less neurotic, less anxious, less jealous. That's a happy mind. You can be a speedy happy person. You know, this whole idea of mindfulness, you've got to walk slowly and look like some kind of boring person. That's just cliche garbage. I'd be a failure as a Buddhist if that was what being a Buddhist was, I promise you. You can have a busy mind, you can have and you can have a happy mind. A happy mind is a mind that isn't neurotic, isn't angry, isn't jealous, isn't fearful. That's a happy mind. Are you with me, people? That's happiness. Then whether you get the cake or not, when you get the cake, that's like extra bonus, you know, but you're happy anyway. And that's logic, and we can understand that. We know this is true. You know, one day you wake up, you're just feeling not so angry, not so neurotic, not so anxious. To that degree, you're happy. It's obvious. It's so clear, you know. And then the things you do get that are nice is a bonus. But if you don't get them, you're cool as well. That's the point. That's the point. And you can be a joyful person. You can be an excited person. You can be a speedy person. Doesn't matter. You can be a rich person, poor person. That's secondary. You don't all turn into some boring, cloned, mindful person walking slowly. Oh, that's the most disgusting view of Buddhism, I promise. Do you understand my point?
Yes. Yeah.
Be who you are. Be authentic. But be valid and kind and wise. That's the job to get done, you know. But that means greeting your misery. That means having courage to hear all your crazy roommates. Your angry one, your jealous one, your proud one, your crazy one. Going nuts with them, that's okay. But we learn to live with them. We learn to be brave, to hear all the crazies and tell them to shut up. Do you understand? Instead of wishing it would all go away. Are we communicating?
Yes.
Any questions, people? Yes.
Che, in Sanche.
What, darling?
The song.
Oh, Sang. Sang is rid of all the rubbish. Gye is full of all the goodness. Wisdom, clarity, kindness. Buddha says we can develop those to perfection. And the other junk is not at the core of our being. This is the essence of it. This deep, it's dealt with in great depth in the Buddhist literature, that this is the nature of our mind or our consciousness. Buddha says he's not talking about the brain here. He's talking about our fundamental being, which is not physical. He talks about consciousness. He doesn't talk about soul. But he says our mind is innately pure. It doesn't need all this extra stuff. It's like extra stuff. They've got extra bells and whistles, ego and fears and attachment and anger. They're very familiar, but we can get rid of those, and then what's left is all the goodness, all the wisdom, all the clarity, all the kindness. That's a very simple concept. That's the essence of what Buddha's saying. And he's telling us this not because he was, you know, this wasn't revealed to him. There's one question. I say we hear all the same questions around the world. I promise you, every country, every language, we ask the same questions. But there's one question I've only ever heard once. And it was in New Zealand, and a scientist. And he said, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Which is a valid question if it's religion. He was completely shocked. And I said, Buddha's like Einstein. You wouldn't ask Einstein who revealed relativity to him. You know that he used his own noggin, his own intelligence, and he observed that relativity is the way things are. Well, Buddha is exactly the same. He was a regular guy who worked hard on his own mind, using these amazing techniques his Indians before him had cultivated, that gone to the depth of his own mind and unpacked and unraveled the contents and ridded the mind of the rubbish and grew the goodness. So he's talking from his own direct observation. It's not revelation in Buddhism. It's not belief, therefore. It's you do the job. So it was a bit of a shocking answer, you know. No one revealed it to him. I mean, if I'm Einstein and I tell you that I had a vision yesterday about relativity, you'd chuck me out the door. If I told you you have to believe in relativity, you'd chuck me out the door again. Well, Buddha's like that. Don't believe a word he's saying. He says, this is my methodology, this is what I've done, this is the goal, here's my methodology, over to you, you can do the same thing. You know, that's the approach. So anyway, you with me? Sangye. Rid of the rubbish and full of the goodness. But it'll be a while before you get there. But at least it tells us that we're not set in stone, that the junk is not at the core of our being. It's real, we hear it, but we can learn to reconfigure this stuff. Do you understand? That's the general, and the goodness is innate within us, and we can grow that part. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
So I love how you explain things, and I'm very attracted to the psychology and the the rational part of it. I think what's hard for people is, how do you combine this with religion? You know what I mean? Like, I see that it's not a preachable religion, but because of the sangha and because of the outfit and because of the rituals, I think it's hard.
Ask a more direct question. What's the question?
Where does it become a religion, right?
What do you mean? So you have to first, we have to analyze these words, don't we? So what do you mean yourself when you say the word religion?
Because
What do
people
you mean?
say, oh, you were Buddhist.
No, darling, I know, but I'm talking to you now.
Yeah,
so you
okay.
have to give me your definition of religion, otherwise I can't talk to you. You have to tell me your definition of religion. What do you mean by the word religion? That's an important question. I have to ask
It's an
you.
important question.
So what do you mean by it?
What do I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You mean a belief system.
It's a belief system.
That's what you mean, a
exactly.
belief system. So
Yes.
where does Buddhism turn from a psychology to belief? Well, it's not. The whole thing is not a belief system in the sense that you're meaning it. There's nothing in
Correct.
Buddhism that you can't prove.
Correct.
Well, then that's your answer. Just a minute, please. Wait. Hang on a tick. You just said, how do you bring the religious aspect? You said this. What's this got to do with it?
Correct. But this is where, like...
But I'm asking you, you're the one
Yes.
asking the questions. We have to
So
analyze
yes,
it. So what
analyze
do you
it.
mean by this? When you said this?
Right, I think the idea of religion is like there's a creator and
Okay.
somebody's telling you
That's
it's
right.
divine and it's...
But there's no concept of creator in Buddhism.
Exactly.
So therefore, why'd you ask the question if you say exactly? I'm not trying to be tricky, but I'm using your words for back to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I think in the West we try to...
No, don't talk about the West. Just talk
Right,
about
but I
yourself.
think
talk about your own
myself-
views, your own mind. You're asking the question, so speak about what you're saying. It's you, not the West. Don't worry
Right,
about that. What
okay,
people
so I
just-
view more as a psychological, it's a way of understanding the mind.
That's right.
And-
It is that.
And that's it.
So then go on though, but where's your question coming from then?
So my question coming from is like, when you look at it, is like there's
Look
all
at
the
what,
ritual.
darling? Look at
When I
what?
look at Buddhism, there's all the rituals.
Okay, good. Now stop right there. Stop. Okay, ritual. What? Give me. We have to analyze it. You're asking me
Fair
what to
enough.
analyze. So what's?
Game.
Give me a ritual as an example.
The
and then-
water bowl.
Good. Okay, stop right there. Stop. Okay, right. So what this is? Would you like me to? Okay, I'll keep it. I'll use an example. If you meet a Tibetan person who's never met a Western person before, and you walk up to them, you'll go, "Hello, Tenzin." You poke your hand out, won't you? And they will go. They've never heard of a handshake. They don't know what on earth you're doing, sticking your hand out. Are you hearing me now? That's a ritual, baby, but it's a ritual that we are so familiar with that we don't think of it as a ritual. And what we know the meaning of the ritual, don't we? So we don't call it a ritual, we just call it what we do in life. So you poke your hand out and I take it and we hold it very strongly and we go boom, boom, boom like this and shake it. But if you grab this Tibetan guy's hand and went boom, 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 he would just be all floppy like this. You think, what a crummy old handshake. So he doesn't know the ritual called shaking a hand. That's a ritual. And if you analyse it, everything we do in every culture is what we learn from mummy and daddy. How we get dressed, how we go to the toilet, how we eat our food is all to do with the body and speech. That is the meaning of ritual. Now, we'd be in trouble if those rituals had no meaning. We'd be seriously mentally ill, wouldn't we? So that's what we think of as religion, as meaningless, empty rituals. Now, the Buddhist view is, if there's anything here that you do that isn't a technique that helps you work on your mind, then it is an empty ritual and you should chuck it in the bin. So it is a ritual insofar as it's a thing that we don't have in our culture. But when you go beneath the surface and analyse what this meaning is, and what this is has got meaning, we can go into it, then it's not a ritual, merely a ritual. It is a ritual because it's physical, but everything we do with our body and speech is a ritual. Everything. But we have to know the meaning of it. And if there's no meaning, don't do it, please. So everything I would say, and this is the logic in Buddhism, including all of these things, all of this, me wearing these robes, me doing this, me doing that, a prostration, singing a prayer, they're all things you do with your body and speech. And in Buddhism, if there is any one of them that isn't a technique that helps me develop my mind, lessen delusions and grow virtue, it is a meaningless ritual and it's a load of garbage. So the logic is that everything you do in Buddhism is not a meaningless ritual. But that's why you take them on when you're ready, because you know the meaning of it and then you buy it and you use that as a meaning to help you develop your mind. That's the approach.
Makes sense.
Do you understand? It's like a language. But I don't speak Spanish. So when I hear you guys with these weird sounds coming out your mouth, but because you know the meaning of it, it's not weird. But otherwise it's just blur, isn't it? Sounds coming out the mouth.
True.
All languages. So everything we do with our body and speech is just like another language. So if there is meaning, you shouldn't do it if there's no meaning. That's absolutely, I agree. But we think of religion as not as only ritual and something you're supposed to believe and you're not supposed to understand. That's the creative religion. And I'm not being critical, Because if you have faith in a creator and don't ask him what his plan, God has a plan, isn't it? That's the idea of God, isn't it? No, I mean, if you have faith in God.
Yeah.
God is the creator of the universe and he has a plan and he knows exactly what he's doing for the next billion years. Well, that's a pretty intense person. And if you're going to have faith in him, honey, relax and enjoy your life. And whatever he does is perfect and then you'll be a perfect Christian. I really mean that sincerely, but that's not the Buddha's view. He's not a bloody creator. He says there's no such thing as a creator. And he says things like the Christians say. The goal that he talks about sounds like what the Christians would say. But he says, this is what I've done. Here's my methodology. It's over to you. So it's a doable thing. Even though it talks about reincarnation, all this stuff is Tibetan, is Indian, it's coming from another world. But it's up to us, if I like it, to learn the new language. It's up to me if I want to buy into this new language, which I've decided to buy into.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to express it in ordinary, down-to-earth, 21st century language. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Are we communicating?
Yeah.
So you take the assumption, it's not merely ritual, but that's up to you to find out. Do you see? That's up to you to find out.
No, I
By
understand.
going into it and looking into it and practicing and growing your practice as and when you're ready for it. Taking these things on. Do you understand my point?
Mhm.
And if it's not a technique, if it's not something you do that doesn't help you lessen delusions and grow goodness, it's just superstition. Shuck it right back to the Buddha so he can stick his nose in it. Do you understand my point? That's the attitude. That is the attitude. That is the attitude. That has to be the view. I mean, it's not an easy thing to hear it because it's just so foreign and weird to us. I agree with you. Totally, I agree. I agree with you. Are we communicating?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
So it's up to us to find out.
Yeah, yeah.
To unpack it and unravel it and look into it and not just buy into it blindly. And this is what we're very fearful. Sometimes we, the Dalai Lama often says to us in the West, he says, if you go take Buddha's methodology, the whole deal. I mean, I've jumped into the deep end. I've got the whole deal. I want a worldview, and I'm happy with the Tibetan Buddhist worldview. So far, after 42 years, so far so good, I will say. You understand my point? I'm buying into the whole system, but I'm going at my own pace in unpacking and unraveling and understanding it. And all I can say is so far so good. But as the Dalai Lama says, if you move along using Buddha's methodology, using Einstein's methodology, and you get to a certain point, you've proved everything so far, and you keep moving, and then you can disprove the next piece, then of course you must reject Buddha. It's logical, it's obvious. We're the boss, That really is important to remember.
Yeah, no, my point was not to question. I think it's just
No.
hard to...
Excuse me. You must question.
I'm questioning, but I'm saying it's just hard to, in my mind, like I come from a Jewish background, and it's so different the way...
Of course it is. Of course,
I don't
another
see
whole-
as a religion the way that religion was...
Of course it is. It looks like that.
It looks, but it's not, and that
But
was the point of the question.
But even it
that
is
you're
because
answering.
Tibetans will all say they're religious, so the definition of religious is fundamentally different.
Okay, that's...
The definition,
that's
the usual definition we have is a creator religion. The usual definition of religious is believing in a creator. That's the crucial difference.
That's it.
All Tibetans will say they're religious, but they'll laugh if you say a creator. They'll laugh if you say they have to believe it. So the definition of religion is not the same as ours. So the definition of religion for them includes what I'm talking here is pure, clear Buddhist teachings from 2,500 years ago. But I'm saying it in a modern way.
Right.
And I'm being authentic, I promise. And if I'm not, you should sue me and never invite me again. Definitely, it's true because I'm misrepresenting. What I'm saying is because he's dealing with the very words I'm saying is Buddhism. But when you read the Indians and the Tibetans saying it, you won't recognize it. I promise. It sounds so bizarre because they talk in a hugely different way, frame things in a different way. Are we communicating?
Yeah,
So it's up to each one of us once to take. And many people don't like doing all this stuff. They don't, it's not your business. You don't need to. You can take what works. You can be 1%. Take 1% and be authentic with that. That's perfect. Nothing wrong with that. Do you understand? At your own pace. That's the thing. It's so important. I know when I first heard this stuff, I didn't even know what the hell I was talking about. I went 1 month and I was happy to be there. I mean, I felt I'd found what I wanted. But it was like this arcane, medieval constructs. And I kept saying to myself, where's the Buddhism? But I hung around, I sort of sensed there was something there. Here I am 42 years later, still unpacking. But somehow, I like what I heard, it's up to you. You're the boss. It's up to you to take it on board as and when. So that's what I felt. All the stuff I didn't comprehend, I put it on the back burner. I wasn't in a hurry. I didn't care. Because I figured if I'm going to be doing, I've got to be the one who proves it. Whereas almost we're often lazy sometimes and rather just believe something. That's intellectual laziness. But it's because I'm a bossy girl. I like the idea of I being in charge and calmer and create myself. That for me was a super appealing idea. You know? I kind of joke, but it's true. So I know it's up to me. I know it's up to me to work it step by step, step by step, step by step. You know. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the process. That's all I can say. So far, so good. For me, personally, you understand. And not for everybody, of course not. Anyway, it's a good point. What else, people? Yeah.
So deities are just like mnemonic devices inside like mandalas and things like that?
No. A deity, a Buddha. This is, where are we? Yeah, this lady here. She's called Tara. It's an Indian thing. It's come from India. And it's a visual language, basically. That female person there in the middle, she's called Tara. It's Indian style, like Indian royal style, come from culture. It's culture. It's all culture. Everything's culture, isn't it? So that is a visual representation of certain qualities that we're trying to develop. So the Buddha would say there are 3 essential qualities. When we perfected our mind, we can narrow it down to 3 essential good qualities. One is wisdom, which means there's no longer a disconnect between what we see and what reality is. The delusions have all gone, all the neuroses have gone, we're blissful and clear. That's the meaning of wisdom, and that's what we can, that's the first part of Sang. Gay is it, then the second one is compassion, this utter empathy. Once all the neuroses have gone, we've only got empathy and clarity and compassion and connectedness with others. There's no longer a separation between self and other. Do you understand what I'm saying? A general idea. So perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, but then there's the third quality. You've got to have compassion, which is the wish to help others. You've got to have the wisdom to know how. But the third one is like action energy, power, they call it, the ability to do so. So she represents the energy, that's often seen as a female quality, the energy of action, cutting through the obstacles, fearlessness, courage, getting things done, putting it into practice, in other words. Compassion, wisdom, and power, they talk about. So she represents the power energy. So visual language, I mean, I agree, it looks like a weird red green lady, I agree with that. But that's the visual, she's the visual, all these Buddhas are different representations of different qualities. Either you want to cultivate, like wisdom, compassion, or in the more advanced level, there's one called Vajrayogini, for example, this gorgeous red naked lady. She represents purified attachment energy. So she's the manifestation of completely purified, transformed, berserk energy. There's one that's this heavy duty dude that scared the shit out of you who met him in human form, who's the manifestation of purified anger energy. So it's really just, it is psychology, but not the way we think about psychology, but it is literally that. It's just this cultural way that's developed for thousands of years in India that came to Tibet, but it represents different psychological qualities. And all these other 21 women, they all, one's fierce, one's black, one's red, she represents purified this, she represents purified that. That is it's a visual language that's personifying a quality that you're trying to cultivate in yourself. Like archetypes, if you like, an archetype. Do you understand? Like if you want to become like Federer, or let's say Serena Williams, you need a poster of Serena Williams. You need a video of Serena. So Serena for you is this image out there that shows you exactly what you want to become. And you replicate that and you become her. The same here. That's the meaning, psychologically. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely arcane, definitely not how we talk, but we get the meaning if you explain it like that.
No, yeah, it's perfect.
You understand?
It makes sense.
Yeah. Even, this is the classic one of the Buddha. He was this guy in India, right? He was this dude that came out of this amazing Hindu tradition of these extraordinary beings for several thousand years before him, who'd cultivated this psychological skill called single point of concentration, who developed their minds to an incredible degree, and who, as the Dalai Lama said, were the ones who first began the investigation into the nature of self, but they internally investigated, which is what we don't have anything like that in psychology. These amazing beings. Well, Buddha got born in that scenario, and then he was one of these sadhus. So if you were around India at the time, the whole place was crawling in sadhus, these dudes who walked around with their orange robe, right? Who'd renounced ordinary life, who were meditators and philosophers. Well, he was one of them. So then he became to his own conclusions about the nature of self, and then he began, so since him has become what's called Buddhism. So that picture represents simply him. Now, if you look at that picture, what he represents is the first stage of practice, which is completely controlled, subdued, disciplined body, speech, and mind. That's like junior school level of practice. This one is more like advanced level, where they actually utilize all the delusions can be transformed into the path. It's more sophisticated. But he represents simply, that's a manifestation of of disciplined, of subdued body, speech and mind. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you see a statue of the Buddha, it's meant to be peaceful and calm, you know? That's the idea. That's the first level, the ground level of practice. Then you've got the compassion wing, then you've got the highest level, the Vajrayana or the Tantric, and that's what this lot are. Are we communicating here? What, darling? Where's this one? Oh, he's called the medicine Buddha. He looks like Buddha, but he's blue. And they use that for healing. So he's got like this, you know, what do you call it, in this bowl. All the Tibetan doctors utilize this practice when they do their healing, you know. Yeah. Okay, what else, people, you people? Questions? Anything? Yes. Down there, question? No. What, darlings? Come on, talk to me.
Transforming delusions into the path. Can you speak more about that?
Well, that's in a way what I've been talking.
Yeah.
That's what I've really been saying, the more advanced level, which means, okay, that's the most advanced level of these ones, so we won't talk about that one. But this level I've been describing is if you, let's say you've got a person, you have a work, you go to work, do you have some people in your life you can't stand? That's right, isn't it? We have most of us have, don't we? Some people annoy us, we agree, don't we? Irritate us, upset us, hurt us. It's human life, isn't it? So then, if you're working on your mind really well and you're aware of, you control your body, you control your speech, and you're aware of your anger, you're aware of your jealousy, you're aware, and this person, let's say they even are horrible to you, let's say they really are horrible. This view is not saying you're making it up. You're not maybe they really are being horrible to you, but the Buddha's point is this. They're being horrible to you, but what we don't realize is, because automatically they trigger my anger, don't they? You're being mean to me causes me to be angry, causes me to be jealous, isn't it? That's how we think. So naturally, the ordinary view is, I'm jealous because you did that. I'm angry because you did that. And those stories say that to me, don't they? So when I feel about you, what you've done to me, I really believe it's you who is causing me anger and causing me jealousy. Would you agree with that? Is that not normal world? Do you agree with that? Okay, using the Buddha's view is, I'm able to recognize, due to past karma, we're not talking about that tonight, we'll go into it the weekend if you're going to be around, I've got some strong history from the past. As I say, that's how it works. The Buddha's view is we don't just come into this life brand new. We've got some old history that even when we first meet each other, we can't stand the sight of each other. And then I'll go home and complain about how you do this and this, and you'll go home and complain about how I do this and this. This is human, this is the planet, right? So the Buddhist one is, due to past history, we've done some harm to each other. So we come back and we meet each other again, and straight away all we do is see enemy. And it's exactly the same as seeing a person you adore. You've got some good history together. So that's the karmic one, which is one aspect of it. But the day-to-day practice of this is I have to learn to recognize that it's my anger, the story that my anger is telling in my head that is the problem of why I'm suffering. The jealousy that's arising in my mind and the story that jealousy is saying is my problem. You're being mean to me is your problem, but my jealousy and my anger and my attachment, they are my problem. And that's the massive distinction that we have to learn to make. That's the theory, but it's just the hardest thing we'll ever do. Because when the jealousy is there, I completely believe the story that jealousy is saying. And that jealous story paints a picture of you, doesn't it? That angry story in me paints a picture of horrible you. I've got to learn to see the difference and realize that story of anger. Yes, you are being mean to me. We can even prove it. But my anger is I can change that. That's the first level of really transforming and being glad. It's like playing with Federer. It's lifting your tennis. So you are giving me, if I'm brave enough, I recognize you're giving me the opportunity to work on my anger, to work on my attachment. These are easy words, but we know how painful it is. That's already pretty. That's at the level I'm talking about here. It's an opportunity. I'll keep out of your way maybe. But I know, I'm glad for this level of practice. Why? Because I know I want to get rid of anger and attachment, and you'll give me a perfect opportunity. If I only ever meet people who are nice to me, I'd never practice. If I only ever meet people who play the tennis the same as me or less, I'd never practice. I'd never get better. It's like that. So this is this level, when you're brave enough, you're prepared to greet the problem and be glad in your mind. You don't feel so happy, but you're glad. It's a challenge. Do you understand my point? This is intense. This is really intense. And every one of us can do this if we're brave enough. That's why I mentioned my friends in prison. who cannot change their situation. They are stuck in it. So they are either go mad or they change their mind and they decide to see this as good. That's the point. It's a challenge. That's when we really can grow. And I think we do this anyway. We put up with our mother-in-law, even though we can't stand her. We know it's going to be a disaster if we start expressing the problem. You get my point? I mean, you don't want to upset your husband. You try to control it. You talk to your sister. You keep it private. But you do your best to be polite to her. We do this all the time. How kind we are. How intelligent we are. You understand my point? Because you can't expect everybody to be, we're like little babies. We want everybody to be nice to us. We're like children. We're like infants. Oh, she doesn't like me. Boo-hoo. You know what I mean? It's not easy, but this is what we all, in fact, this is most depressing. The deepest attachment we have, it's stronger than sex, drugs, rock and roll, power, money, or anything, is the attachment to be liked. It sounds so embarrassing, it's unbelievable. But that's our deepest craving since we're born. We are yearning to be seen as a good girl. And the moment we meet anybody who doesn't meet that, we have a panic attack. And I'm not trying to diminish it. It's painful. People go mad, lose their minds with this. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So this is an intense level of practice. Because we don't, we've got to really analyse. We've got to ask the question, which we never do. Why do I need other people to approve of me? In our world, I think we actually believe we're social beings in our nature, and we need to have other people to see that we're nice in order to feel we are nice ourselves. Buddha says, no, baby, you're already nice. You just have to realise it yourself. Then it won't matter. Then it's water off a duck's back. I mean, these words we know, but Buddhism runs with this approach. So it's intense, And you've got to know what you can handle. You've got to know what you're capable of. You can't cope with that crazy husband. Get the hell out of the way before you kill him. Be intelligent, Do you get my point? But if you can't, I always quote one of my friends in Melbourne. She's a Buddhist, she's a grandmother now. And her husband's a drunk, okay? But he's a quiet drunk. He doesn't harm anybody. He's kind, he's intelligent, he's generous. But for 50 years, he's just drinks himself every night. He's retired now, he's a grandfather. He goes outside, he drinks his 5 bottles of beer with the dog next to him, looking at nature. He's a very nice man. Then he comes in and he drinks 6 bottles or 5 bottles of red during dinner. But he doesn't harm anybody. So years ago, naturally she discovered she's an alcoholic. When she first discovered, she hopes he'll change. But she slowly realised that he wasn't going to change. So normally what happens is you become bitter, you become resentful, you become angry, you use passive aggression, you reject him. Like even if one friend I know, she makes her husband drink in the garage. I mean, can you imagine the misery between them? But she realised she had to make a choice. Stay or go. She weighed up the benefits. Because it's an Italian family, grandchildren, kids, they live next door to each other, big family, She weighed it up and she realised the benefit was to stay. So she loves the husband. She never finds fault. She never criticises. She has stopped expecting him to change. That's powerful, okay? So she's happy. Do you understand? But she loves him who he is. That's intense. This is so simple, but so powerful. That's intense. And if you can't do it, leave. You've got to be intelligent, We've got to know where we're at, what capability we've got. That means such wisdom, I tell you. But that's an example. Do you understand my point? But you've got to know what you can handle. And that's just not easy, but it's possible. We can do it. But it doesn't happen overnight. But that's the inner work we have to do. That's why you've got to have awareness. What the hell is going on in our own mind? And that itself is not so easy because it's not part of our culture, We communicating? That's transforming. That's the first level. The more sophisticated level after that, but never mind that one. You with me? Good. Any other questions, people? No? Yeah? Nothing?
I have a question.
Good, darling, go.
So it's a little bit tactical, right?
A bit
But,
what?
Tactical.
Oh, good, okay. Go.
So I've been hearing to Buddhism teachings for 2 years now, approximately. First one with you, and thank you for that. But I notice in my own mind and with my practice that whenever I am, say, close to you, Venerable Amy, any teachers that would come here and share their teachings, those days are amazing days in my life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean,
I do,
kind
I
of like,
understand.
I can really, I have
That's right.
good, I would say, state of mind.
Yeah, I
if you
understand.
would think about it that way. Then, regular life comes
That's
in
right.
again, right? And then you are not exposed to the teachings
That's right,
or
that's
to the
right.
practice, you know,
That's
like
right.
for a while,
Yeah.
and then the crazy monkey mind.
That's right, exactly.
And you
That's
know,
right.
like anxiety, anger, and all of
That's
that
right.
is back.
Exactly.
You know. So
Naturally.
how, which would be your recommendation or your point of view in terms of trying to maintain as much as we can that?
No, exactly. It's not. It isn't easy, but it's like if we can demystify it and see that it's like learning anything. So you come here for a week and you got to, you know, you're learning music, and you come and there's a music workshop and everybody around you is playing music and you have master classes. You get all excited and it's wonderful. And then the music class goes away and you're back to ordinary life where no one else plays music. Naturally, it is hard. But when you know that, then that's where you have to be extra strong to have the discipline to practice every day. And if you don't practice every day, obviously you forget. It will be harder, but that's normal and you should not be disappointed with it. But that's why if you don't have some semblance of some disciplined practice, a bit in the morning and a bit at night, that enables you to set your day in the right direction, and then throughout the day you learn to practice, and then to finish the day. And I swear to you, it's as simple but as difficult as that, because we're all lazy and we all forget and we're not disciplined. And life takes over. That's the answer, darling. There's no shortcut. And I think you understand it already. And it demands a lot of self-confidence, and it demands the discipline. But first understand the logic of it. And then to have some integrity and know that when we go after 3 days of doing a practice, then you wake up one morning, I'll do it later. Already you've lost the plot. So you've got to catch yourself like a hawk and just keep the discipline. And the fact is, when you have the classes, when your people are here, it's all exciting and energetic and we get it. But the second you're back on our own, it's as boring as hell. So don't expect to get all excited every day. It's very rare that people really enjoy their practice. And I tell you, I've been doing all my practices, and I do them every day. But that doesn't mean I have fun doing them. But I know I want to be disciplined, and there's no way in the world I won't do my practices. Because it's like, a good analogy is it's, because the results are long term. Part of our problem is the attachment in us wants immediate results. We're a bit junkies, we're junky. We want immediate result. So the fact is, it's like the analogy of a garden is really a good one. If you've got a big overgrown mass of green stuff out there, you've got to start somewhere, and it's really hard work to get out there knee deep in all the junk, pulling out all the weeds, and you get very depressed because you can't see any. It even looks worse because you pulled everything up. It looks like a big mess, and that often is one of the signs of practice. That often you think you're getting worse. They say that when you start to practice, you think you're getting worse, but you're not. You're bringing up the junk and you're seeing it. So it doesn't feel nice. So when you're out in that garden, up knee deep in dirt, it's not pleasure. You can't see any flowers and veggies, but you know you're planting them. So you have patience to wait. You have patience to know that you've got to sow the seeds. That's one of the major things to remember. But we're junkies. We want the garden right now. We want the veggies instant. Do you understand my point? But you've got to have the view, and it's when we really understand, and it's like anything you learn, you can't become bark overnight. You come to the exciting class the whole week, and the master class, and the teacher's teaching bark, you get so excited. The second it all leaves, you're back to the grind of doing your boring old exercises every morning, and you're not happy with it, because there's no pleasant feeling. But when you have your long-term understanding and the result, you will persevere. Perseverance is the key to success. And not expecting results right now. Being big girl about it. That's the difficulty. But logically knowing, if you do a bit every day, like if you do weeding every day, it is logical the results will come. It is logic. Instead of wanting them right now. These are all part of the approach. You with me? That's the answer, darling. Just got to persevere. That's all. Persevere. Because it's logical. But see, one of the problems is also, this is the problem about, because attachment is so fierce in us. Attachment is also the problem when it comes to our practice, because attachment can't stand the problems. So we start to practice and we get all excited. Wow, I can get less angry, less attached. I'm so happy. I can't wait. But then as soon as you start practicing, you're noticing your mind more. So you actually think you're getting worse. One of the things in the texts, in this description of the meditation technique that's called single-pointed concentration, this classic one from the Indians from centuries that mindfulness is based on, is described in terms of 9 stages. So they even say at the first of the 9 stages, one of the signs of success is you think your mind's getting more berserk. because you're noticing it first. So it's like you go to the gym on the first day. You go all excited to the gym to get fit. You come home with muscles you didn't know you had. And we know, but the point is we know that's a good pain. If you sat there watching television and you felt that pain, you'd be in serious trouble. But you know the pain's a good sign. So that's a really good analogy. So you've got to have courage to be aware of your mind. But one of my friends is a serious meditator. Years and years, 30 years doing 3-year retreats, 4-year retreats, a serious full-on practitioner. At some point he said he was going out of his brain with extra levels of rage and anger and arrogance. He thought he was going nuts. He was really freaked out. And he went to Lama Zopa, and Lama Zopa laughed and laughed and laughed. And he said, fantastic, the dirt has to come out, the dirt has to come out, the dirt has to come out. He kept repeating it. But that's literally how it is. So you really got to, I mean, we all know this is true. When you go to the gym and you start to practice, and you start to do the running, you start to do the jogging, you start to get fit, you start to lose weight, you bring up problems. It's difficult, it's painful, you struggle, you're freaking out, you want to eat 14 chocolate cakes when you go on a diet. Everything becomes crazy. So it's the same here with our minds. So we've got to know that's part of it and know that's all part of the growth. So you've got to know this in advance. Instead of the junkiness, attachment just wants to make us all feel nice and cute. It just doesn't work like that. But you've got to have perseverance. Do you understand? The dirt has to come out. What else, people? Yeah.
What you were just talking about sparked in me
Yeah.
my issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like an extremist.
Oh, that sounds like me. I'm an extremist too.
You know, I get into meditation sometimes and
Yeah.
I do it for months.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I miss it,
Yes.
and then I kind of relax.
And then you give up.
And then, and then something sparks me to go back.
Oh, okay, I understand.
And I start meditating like crazy.
I understand.
But my issue is this.
Mhm.
Am I concentrating on my meditation correctly? And that's why I'm getting
I
to
understand.
the point of exhaustion.
I understand. So
And I
if-
stop.
I understand. So the key question is, first of all, what are you doing? And second, why are you doing it? So if you're going to the gym because someone told you you're going to feel good, then you'll give the gym up in one day. But if you go to the gym with the long-term understanding in mind, you've got to really work hard to practice, to lose weight and train all these muscles, you'll be ready for the hard work and you won't be like a junkie wanting a nice feeling. So it's up to what your motivation is, why you're meditating, and then secondly, I'd ask you what meditation you're doing. So tell me why you meditate, very simply. Don't give a holy answer, just tell me in your own gut, why do you meditate?
Well, I try to meditate to really try to stable myself
Okay,
in everyday life.
okay, good.
Because what happens is, if sometimes when I don't meditate,
I understand.
I go to extreme
I understand. So then your
craziness.
I understand. So whatever meditation you do, then it helps. Does it help you see your mind more clearly? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And does it help you in daily life be more conscious of what's happening and then adjust your speech and your body before you go berserk?
Yes.
Well, then it's a good meditation. So just keep. But is it only meditation you do, or do you do other things in your practice as well? I'm just curious.
Well, I do some chanting, private chanting.
What
different-
mantras and things?
Yes.
You like doing those? I mean, the Buddhists, see, the Tibetan Buddhists, this is where it sounds like religion now, and it is in this sense, that the Buddhists still talk about, and the Christians and Jews talk about God, you know, but the Buddhists will talk about the Buddhas, who are beings who have accomplished these goals and whose minds aren't physical and who do exist in the universe as well as in human bodies, and that they're beings who do exist, and we still have practices where we invoke them and do practices that relate to them. So they're said to be like mantras, are said to be like Tara's mantra is Om Tare Tutare Ture. So it's a Sanskrit sound that represents that energy. So by relating to saying those sounds can invoke that part of yourself. By saying Om Mani Padme Hum, which represents compassion, it can activate that part of yourself. So these are very powerful practices, they would say. So darling, if you're doing all this, just keep moving and relax a bit. Don't expect magic to come. And just do a little bit every day, even if it's 5 minutes. It's better than doing an hour a day and then giving it up, being fanatic. And that's okay. You've got your style, you've got your nature, recognise yourself, but just get lazy, pick yourself up and just keep moving. You've got to keep doing that and not be disappointed. That's our biggest problem, we get disappointed with ourselves. But we're just human, So you got to, the key one is perseverance. You fail, you pick yourself up, you keep moving. You fall down again, you pick yourself up, you keep moving. That's the key to success. Just don't go on about it, tell yourself to shut up and just off you go and keep moving. That's it, honey. Honestly, so just it sounds like you're doing really good. Just keep moving. Yeah.
So within all the traditions that Buddhism has,
Yes.
there is one that is supposed to sounds like a shortcut, which is the Vajrayana. And
Yeah, but Vajrayana is postgraduate. So you can't do postgraduate without university, and you can't do university without high school, and you can't do high school without junior school. So of course it's the end result. You're nearly there by that point. So of course it's quick, but it depends on all the previous stuff as well. You can't leap into postgraduate.
No, but they say it's like in one life you get.
It is, but it's as a result of all the other previous stuff.
Okay.
Listen, when you're really at the highest level of postgraduate with your music, you're practically there, aren't you? So you can say, in this one life, I'm going to finally become Bach. But guess what you did for bloody 47 lives before? Junior school, high school, university. So don't isolate it. You can't isolate it. It's not like that. It's a mistake to think that. It depends upon all your earlier work. You get my point? You don't get it, do you?
More or less.
What? You can't hear what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. So then it still is fast. Yes, of course it's a speedy one. And you can practice it. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's got junior school, high school, university, and postgraduate. It's got all the components. But it's logical that if you haven't actually realized junior school, high school, university, you can't do it in one life. But if you've done all that work, then when you're on the Vajrayana, you've got all the tools to help you do it in one life. But it's preceded by the earlier work, sweetheart. It's a dependent arising. It's meaningless and nonsense to think it's an isolated, quick path. Are you seeing my point?
I agree, but
Okay, good.
that's not how a lot of
No, you're misinterpreting what they're saying.
the Westerns are doing.
They're
here.
misinterpreting it.
Okay.
They're not doing it at all. It's like a joke. Don't say that. They're not doing it. It's a joke to say that. What do you mean the Westerners are doing
No,
it?
some no, not the West. I mean, I see like books and.
What? What, darling?
No, I was just reading and it seems that.
Reading what, for example? Give me a source. Don't just say reading.
No.
Reading what? Which book? What title? By which
no,
author?
just there's I don't know the name of this Dzogchen.
Dzogchen.
Yeah.
That's a particular practice, darling.
No,
Yes.
then it's not his name. I'm sorry.
It's a practice, not a person.
No, it's a person.
Well, not Dzogchen. I mean, Dzogchen Rinpoche, maybe.
No, he wrote this book on the monk who drinks whiskey and
Darling, I don't know about this stuff.
it doesn't matter.
Sweetheart, there's some rubbish. Just please ignore it. Can you mind just relax and just relax. Go one step at a time.
So on that point, like I found this practice, right? So the belief is then this was on my path, and I'm attracted to Mahayana and the practices of our study group, and I'm happy to learn from here. Does it mean that this is the time for me to find this in this life?
Well, obviously it is. I mean, in that simple, it's like saying, well, suddenly one day all these roses grew in my garden. Well, obviously it's the right time for your roses to grow because you've done all the work. They didn't come out of nowhere. Do you understand my point? They're your roses, and all the time and the rain and the thing all came together. Oh, boom, today the roses came. Yes, of course. You created the causes. You got yourself here. Oh, clearly, it's logical. That's dependent arising. That's the cause and effect. Absolutely. Time was right. That's it. Good. What else, you people?
So,
Yeah.
this is my first time here.
Oh, okay. God knows what you
First
think
time
about it. How are you going?
No, I'm doing well.
Good.
Until you began to talk about practice and of course I'm not a dumb. I understand perfectly that we have to be, you have to have some techniques.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. Yes, that's
So
right.
how do I begin? Because I'm a professional bad mouth talker. and I'm very good at it. So
I understand. Y'all enjoy the
But
club.
I also know deep down,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
when I shut up my mouth, and that's very difficult, then I'm more happy. So how I'll do it.
Honey, you've already started, baby. You've really, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic now, you really seriously started. Because the vast majority of the world would not say that. So the fact that you come to this room, you hear this, and you go, wow, I recognise that. Honey, child, you're well and truly started. So just keep moving.
Okay.
You just keep moving. You found something, you've got to grow it, you know. Like you found the music you liked. Keep moving. It's up to you. I mean, that's why, okay, now, Maria and Anna Paula started this group about 3 years ago. They met me. You came to London to see me, didn't you?
Yes.
So then, you know, did I probably suggest you should start a group, didn't
Yes.
I? I did probably. I'm such a bossy girl, you know. Never mind, they've been doing it for a while. And then, you know, so then just this week, Anna Paula's saying she doesn't want to be coordinator any longer. That's fine. So Maria's now the boss. And I'm trying to educate Maria to think like a manager. So we've got a plan to grow the centre. To have, I mean, the idea is, you know, we haven't really agreed yet with Marcelo and Alejandra yet about it. But the idea is to make this ground floor, we're going to work on it when negotiating, a serious centre. Open it up every bloody day, have meditation, have this, have feng shui, have healing sessions, have classes. Seriously, and there's enough there to make this centre grow. Just Maria's been a bit cautious, holding back and not sure she can do, but I'm trying to bully her into being a good manager. And we're trying to work out a plan before I go on Monday. Right, that's the idea. So that would be good, wouldn't it, to have a place you can come every day, a nice book cafe, come in for a coffee, it's open every day, a bit of a, like one of our centres in Leeds, in England, they got a cute thing they call express meditation. 7 in the morning before you go to work, and at noon you hop in for half an hour, a little meditation. Different things like this. And she's got there's the means here to do it, you know. So we're trying to work on that plan. So then you'll have a place to come to. People like this want your classes, Maria, so it's about time you grew it, not just once a bloody month.
I found this place through YouTube.
There you go.
So I didn't know you guys here, so I was watching YouTube. Then I went to the site, and that's how I
There you
found
go,
it.
you see.
This
So
is
look
our
at the needs.
YouTube lady, Claudia.
There you go, Claudia. See, so I think Maria's she's got to start try and get a plan. What have we done? We've looked at the curriculum. We've looked at the expenses. We've looked at the income. We've looked at we're going to do the website, all the components of a decent kind of. You know, because you use commercial principles because we're very good at that in our culture, but with a spiritual basis. You know, there's no contradiction, isn't it? To make the place work so it's lovely for people to come. That's the whole point. So we're working on that, and then when she gets the plan and she's going to up and start it going, and then people can get involved, and then she's going to find means for people to get involved, to be supportive, you know. But people want that, don't you want something like that regular to come? Have healing classes, have this one, have a bit of meditation, a bit of teachings, a bit of yoga, a bit of this, a bit of that, right? Is it not true? Okay. And we're negotiating with the owners here about this ground floor. Do you understand? So we'll see where it all goes. It's coming, a bit of a plan. So keep your ears open.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, she's prepared to take it on. I said I'm her manager. I'm gonna, you know, I'm like her. It's like a course she's doing, you know, and I'm her mentor or her manager, whichever one, both probably.
Yes.
Okay, what else, you people? It's time to go home, I think. What's the time?
9:05.
9:05. Okay. What else, you guys? That'll do for now. I think it's Friday, isn't it? Is it Friday?
Thursday.
Oh, Thursday. Oh, we've got tomorrow as well.
Yes.
And then Saturday.
Yes.
And then Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then what we'll do, I think the next, if you're somebody's going to come back, we'll do tomorrow and certainly Saturday. We'll go into the other. Mainly, I'll talk about there's two main components. Okay. Sorry. There's a bird needs two wings, okay? Wisdom and compassion. So wisdom is like junior school and high school. The wisdom wing is the nuts and bolts of Buddhist psychology and philosophy that you use to put you together, which is what we're talking here, right? So that then you can go to university and start to help others, and then you can whiz off to get enlightened quickly on the Vajrayana. But you do them all together, okay? You do them all together incrementally, okay? So we'll talk the first component mostly about the wisdom wing, which is working on your mind. So that's really more like high school. We're going to go back to junior school tomorrow, maybe on the weekend, and talk about this whole concept of karma, which is really massive in Buddhism. It's not just something made up by the bloody hippies in the 1960s. People often think it is. It's ridiculous. It's a worldview. It's an entire massive worldview that's been in India for thousands of years. But because we in the Judeo-Christian world know zero about India, we just think it's wacky, you know. But it's a very fascinating worldview. And we're going to go into that. And that's a massive component as well of the wisdom wing. One of the tools you use to help yourself understand understand yourself and others and the way the world is. Do you understand? It's a major part of practice. And not everybody likes it, whatever, but we'll talk about that part. And we'll add it to this bit. So this is the wisdom wing. This is junior school and high school, where you put yourself together. Then on the basis of this, you continue to work on your mind, but now you include others, you know. You want to actually benefit others because you've got more wisdom and less neurosis. And then you whiz off and finally do the most advanced level. Are you understanding me, people? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. That'll do tonight. I think you.
Yeah.
All right? I'll sing a little prayer to finish. I didn't sing a prayer in the beginning. This little prayer is just, we call it a dedication. The Buddhist idea about the mind, and we'll talk more about this obviously, is that everything we think and do and say, nothing goes astray. Everything gets stored in our mind, okay? Everything gets stored there. Nothing goes astray. So as many moments, you could say, as many moments as there have been this evening that we've been here together, is as many thoughts that we planted in our mind, as many seeds, if you like, that we planted. So we kind of think maybe nourish these seeds, anything that we've got from these teachings, from this second forward with our effort to develop our marvelous qualities so we can, for our own sake, so we can be of help to others, because we live in this crazy world together, and develop our marvelous potential for our sake and for the sake of others. I'll just sing a little prayer that expresses that. Kewati nyududak lama sangge drugyune drowa chikyang malupa dei sala gupasho Jangchub Samchog Rinpoche Maki Panam Ke Gyuchik Ke Panyampa Me Payang Gong Ne Gong Du Palvasho. Okay, thank you very much. Now go to my commercials.
Yes.
Every year since 2001, I've been leading a pilgrimage to India and Nepal, all the places of the Buddha. We start in Kathmandu, go to these places in India. It's nearly 3 weeks, and it's just, I never get bored. It's like since 2001, every year, and it raises money for our prison project. $500 each person who goes to our prison project, which I used to run. So it's an amazing experience. And I always think before you die, if you want to go to see about a bit more about the Buddhist places, you come with me. It's in October. It's very fantastic. We do it every year. The other one is my CD called Devotion. It's a choir of Rabinas. What can I tell you? A friend of mine in Australia came to a teaching a couple of years ago. She heard me sing and she said she recognised a trained voice. And indeed, my mummy is a classical singer. And while all my other sisters would go off to the football on Saturday, she'd teach me singing. So I don't know, I somehow learned how to use my diaphragm. I wouldn't know how to teach anybody else. Even though I'm a bass baritone now, I used to be a soprano, So somebody heard, when we worked together, so we did this sort of a cappella, like 10th century church music. We took the main tune, like I just did then we did multiple voices of it, me, and then we did parts, seconds and thirds and top ones, and I couldn't do the high ones, so she had to sing the high ones. And then we would oohs and ahs in the background. It's like a huge choir in a cathedral, but it's my voice. So it raises money for my Bodhicitta Trust, and it's out there, and it's $13, and you can buy $8 on digital online. That's my commercial. And 30% goes to the centre. 30% goes to the centre. Okay? That's my commercial. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, darling.